So, you want to own a junk removal business. Good news. You can start one this weekend for less than the price of a used Honda Civic. Bad news. So can literally anyone else. And that is the entire problem with this industry, and the entire reason it works. The junk removal business in the United States is worth over $10 billion a year. It employs roughly 67,000 people. It is growing at 5 to 8% annually, and it has been doing that for over a decade. Not because anybody innovated anything, not because of technology, regulation, or a breakthrough product. It's growing because Americans now throw away nearly 1,800 pounds of material per person per year. And that number goes up every single year, no matter what the economy does. You are not selling a service. You are selling the removal of a problem that the richest country on earth produces faster than any other nation in human history, and the customer will pay you in cash the same day you show up. So let's find out what this actually costs, who makes money, who doesn't, and why the man in the clean truck charging $400 is doing the exact same job as the man in the dirty truck charging $150, and somehow both of them are right. Let's start with what you need. A truck, insurance, a strong back. That's it. That's the entire barrier to entry. A used box truck or a pickup with a dump trailer will run you somewhere between $3,000 and $25,000, depending on whether you're buying from a dealership or a guy on Facebook Marketplace who swears the transmission is fine. General liability insurance costs roughly $1,100 to $5,000 a year. An LLC registration is $100 to $300, depending on your state. Add in a basic set of tools, some moving blankets, tie-down straps, work gloves, and a hand truck, and you are looking at a total startup cost of somewhere between $5,000 and $25,000. Compare that to a McDonald's franchise at $2 million, a bank charter at $20 million. Even a food truck will cost you $50,000 to $100,000 before you serve a single plate. Junk removal might be the cheapest real business you can legally start in America. But cheap to start does not mean easy to run. And this is where the math gets interesting. Your revenue comes from one thing: the space your customer's junk takes up in your truck. That's the entire pricing model. Not by weight, not by item, not by hour, by volume. A full truckload runs somewhere between $500 and $800. A half load, $275 to $400. A quarter load, $175 to $250. A single item like a couch or a mattress, $75 to $200. You quote on site after you see the job, and the customer says yes or no on the spot. Average job nationally runs about $200 to $240. If you're a solo operator with one truck, doing 3 to 4 jobs a day, 5 days a week, that's roughly $60,000 to $120,000 a year in gross revenue. Some hustle-heavy operators clear $150,000. If you add a second truck and a crew, you can push past $300,000. Established multi-truck companies with commercial contracts clear $500,000 to over $1 million. But here's the number everyone glosses over. Revenue is not profit. And in this business, the thing that sits between your revenue and your profit is a hole in the ground: the landfill. Every load you haul has to go somewhere, and that somewhere charges you by the ton. The national average landfill tipping fee in America just hit $62.28 per ton, a 10% jump in a single year, the largest increase since 2022. And that's the average. If you're operating in the Northeast, you're paying over $80 a ton. In Maine or New Hampshire, you're above $110. In parts of New York, construction and demolition debris is now running $150 a ton. This is the single most important number in your business. It is the number that determines whether you made money today or lost it. And it is a number you do not control. The landfill sets it, the landfill raises it, and the landfill does not negotiate. A good operator accounts for this. They price their jobs at 2 to 3 times the disposal cost. They sort recyclables and donations to reduce the weight that hits the dump. They build relationships with scrap yards, donation centers, and recyclers, because every couch that goes to Habitat for Humanity instead of the landfill is $62 a ton you didn't spend. A bad operator quotes low to win the job, drives to the dump, gets hit with a tipping fee he didn't budget for, and realizes he just worked 6 hours for $40. That's the first filter. Most people who fail in this business fail because they never learned to price around the dump fee. Here's the second filter: finding the customer. In junk removal, the phone does not ring by itself. You are not a restaurant with foot traffic. You are not a store with a sign. You are a truck parked at home, waiting for someone in your zip code to decide today is the day they clean out the garage. And you need that person to find you before they find the other 12 guys with trucks in the same area. Marketing is the single biggest ongoing expense for independent operators. Google local service ads will cost you $30 to $80 per lead. Not per job, per lead. Some of those leads answer the phone, some don't. Some want a quote and then call someone cheaper. You can list on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace for free, and that will get you started. But to fill a schedule consistently, most operators spend $500 to $2,000 a month on advertising. Organic growth through Google reviews and word of mouth takes months to build. Until then, you are paying for every ring of the phone. And this is exactly the gap that the franchise model was built to fill. In 1989, a 19-year-old high school dropout in Vancouver was sitting in a McDonald's drive-thru when he noticed a beat-up pickup truck in front of him with a sign advertising a junk hauling service. His name was Brian Scudamore. His thought was simple: I can do that. He withdrew $700 from the bank. He bought a used Ford F-100. He spent the remaining $300 on flyers and business cards. He called his company the Rubbish Boys. He broke even in 6 weeks. Today, that company is called 1-800-GOT-JUNK. It operates across the United States, Canada, and Australia. It has over 170 franchise locations. Its system-wide revenue is somewhere north of $300 million a year. Scudamore built a $500 million empire out of other people's garbage, and he did it by solving the one problem independent operators can never solve on their own: the phone. 1-800-GOT-JUNK runs a centralized call center and a national online booking platform. When a customer in Phoenix types junk removal into Google, the franchise's brand recognition and advertising budget puts their name at the top. The local franchisee gets the call. The franchisee sends the truck. That is what you're paying for when you buy in. And you are paying a lot. The initial franchise fee is $65,000. You're required to buy a minimum of 8 subterritories at just over $8,000 each. Total initial investment runs between roughly $184,000 and $294,000, depending on how many trucks you buy, whether you lease a staging facility, and how much working capital you keep on hand. Then come the ongoing fees: 8% royalty on gross revenue, another 3 to 8% in marketing and technology fees. Depending on your location, total fees to corporate run between 11 and 21% of everything your trucks bring in. Think about what that means in practice. On a $200 job, $30 to $40 goes to corporate before you've paid your crew, bought gas, or driven to the dump. On every job, forever. 50% of a franchise's revenue typically goes to labor. Add the royalty, the marketing fees, the dump costs, the truck payments, and the insurance, and you are running a business where the margins are real but thin, and the corporation is your permanent silent partner who never misses a payment. There is a reason many independent operators look at those numbers and decide to answer the phone themselves. Now, let's talk about what actually makes someone rich in this business. Because it is not hauling couches. Estate cleanouts. When someone dies, and the family lives in another state, and nobody wants to spend a week sorting through 40 years of accumulated belongings in a house that needs to be sold, they call a junk removal company. Not to haul trash, to empty an entire life. These jobs pay between $1,000 and $5,000, sometimes more. They take 1 to 3 days, and they come with something no other junk removal job offers: treasure. One estate cleanout company in Philadelphia has publicly stated that they find cash, jewelry, or important documents in roughly 40% of the properties they clear. Not 10%. Not occasionally. 40%. Hidden in coffee cans, taped under drawers, sewn into the lining of coats, stuffed inside books. One family almost threw away a coffee can containing $8,000 because it looked like garage junk. Experienced estate cleanout operators know this. They don't rush. They check the paint cans. They shake the jars of screws. They look under the insulation in the attic. They check behind loose bricks in the fireplace. Every item gets inspected before it hits the truck, because the economics of this work are not just about the hauling fee. They are about what you find inside the haul. Furniture that looks like junk from the 70s can be mid-century modern worth thousands. A box of old baseball cards in the garage can pay for the entire job. And anything made before 1980, especially furniture, artwork, and collections, deserves a second look before it goes in the truck. This is where the business stops being manual labor and starts being knowledge work. The operator who knows what a piece is worth makes more than the operator who can carry more weight. And the gap between those two grows with every job. Now let's talk about the dark side. Because every industry built on low barriers to entry attracts people who don't plan to play by the rules. The cheapest way to run a junk removal business is to never go to the landfill at all. In some states, a first offense for illegal dumping carries a fine of a few $100s. When the legal disposal cost for a large load can run into the thousands, the math is not complicated. Some operators collect the full hauling fee from the customer, drive to an empty lot, a rural road, or behind an abandoned building, and dump everything. The customer never knows. The operator pockets the entire fee minus gas. This is a real and persistent problem. Cities across America spend millions per year on illegal dump site cleanups. In California, the penalty can reach $10,000 per offense and up to 6 months in jail. In New York, illegal dumping was upgraded to a felony in 2020, carrying up to 4 years in prison. In Florida, dumping over 500 pounds for commercial purposes is a felony. And in many jurisdictions, the person who hired the junk removal company can also be fined because the law holds the waste generator responsible if their contractor dumped illegally. You paid $200 to have your old sofa removed. It ended up in a creek behind a strip mall, and the Department of Environmental Conservation can fine both the hauler and you. This is one reason the franchise model, for all its costs, carries a real advantage for customers. A branded truck with GPS tracking, insurance paperwork, and a corporate reputation to protect is far less likely to dump your grandmother's furniture in a vacant lot than a guy from Craigslist with a pickup and a cash-only policy. But the legitimate operators have their own structural problems. Problem 1. You are the product. In the early stages, you are not the owner of a junk removal business. You are a junk removal business. You are the driver, the loader, the salesman, the dispatcher, and the accountant. You are lifting refrigerators, carrying mattresses down narrow staircases, and crawling through basements full of someone's entire life. This is physical labor, real physical labor, the kind that wears out knees, shoulders, and backs. The growth ceiling arrives when you run out of your own hours, and the transition from solo operator to employer is the hardest jump in the entire business, because the moment you hire someone, your costs double, your margins shrink, your workers' comp insurance spikes, and you are now managing a human being who might not show up on Monday. 50% of revenue in a scaled junk removal operation goes to labor costs. That is the single biggest line item, bigger than disposal, bigger than trucks, bigger than marketing. Problem 2. Your moat is a puddle. Nothing stops the next guy from buying a truck tomorrow. There is no patent. There is no license that takes 2 years to get. There is no technology barrier. There is no regulatory moat. There is only your reputation, your reviews, and how fast you answer the phone. In a $10 billion industry where independent operators still hold over 55% of the total market, your competition is not 1-800-GOT-JUNK. It is the 23-year-old with a dump trailer and a Craigslist ad who will do the same job for $100 less because he doesn't have insurance and doesn't know what the dump is going to charge him yet. He will either learn or he will quit. But before he does either, he will take 3 months of your customers. So let's pull it together. What do you actually make? Scenario 1. Solo operator, 1 truck, year 1. You started with around $10,000 to $15,000. You're running 3 jobs a day, averaging $200 each. Gross revenue somewhere around 90 to 150,000. After dump fees, fuel, insurance, truck maintenance, and marketing, you're netting between $40,000 and $80,000. That's a real income, not a great income, but a real one built in a year with no degree, no license, and no permission from anyone. Scenario 2, 2 trucks, a small crew. Year 3, revenue pushes past 250 to 300,000, but labor is eating 50%. Disposal is eating 15 to 20%. Marketing, insurance, and overhead take another 15 to 20. Net profit sits somewhere around 50 to 90,000. You are making roughly the same money you made alone, but now you have employees, liability, and a truck payment. The payoff is that you now own a business that runs without your back. And that business, once it has recurring commercial contracts and consistent revenue per truck per day, can be sold. Private equity buyers have paid 3.5 to 4.5 times earnings for well-run multi-truck operations. Scenario 3, the franchise path. You invested close to $250,000. You're 3 years in. The brand brings the calls. Your trucks are averaging somewhere around $3 million in system-wide revenue if you've built out a top-performing territory with multiple sub-territories. But 11 to 21% of gross is going back to corporate. Labor is taking 50%. By the time you net it out, the annual profit on a $250,000 investment looks a lot like the profit on a $15,000 independent startup, just with a nicer truck and a phone that rings more often. And here is the uncomfortable truth at the bottom of this $10 billion industry. The product is not the truck. The product is not the labor. The product is not even the removal. The product is the fact that Americans buy more than they need, keep it longer than they should, and will pay someone a significant premium to make the evidence disappear. Every year, this country generates over 250 million tons of municipal solid waste, 600 million tons of construction and demolition debris, 11 million tons of clothing alone. Americans spend roughly $18,000 per person per year on things they don't need, and then they spend another $200 to $800 paying someone to carry those things to a hole in the ground. The junk removal business is not a business built on efficiency. It's a business built on excess. And excess in America is not a market that is going anywhere. You don't need a franchise. You don't need a degree. You don't need $250,000. You need a truck, a strong back, and a zip code full of people with garages they haven't opened in 3 years. The entire business model, from the $700 pickup truck in Vancouver to the $500 million empire it became, rests on one permanent, structural, non-negotiable feature of American life. We have too much stuff, and we will always have too much stuff. And as long as that's true, someone is going to get paid to carry it away.